It's a Wednesday afternoon. It's time once again for Policy Nuance with Mark Batinick, State Representative in the 97th District. Joins us live in our WJL studios. Representative Batinick, hello, sir.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Awesome to be back. Had a not-so-busy week in our first veto session. I'm honestly not sure why we went down. We voted on one resolution, which we could have done Tuesday. Sometimes it seems like Springfield is a whole lot of theater, and I always say never confuse activity with accomplishment. But we're back down for this week. It's obviously, we talked about some of the stuff. I want to get into some of the stuff we're going to be doing this week. A lot of heavy stuff with the maps and PNA and some other stuff, so we're going to go over that. But we did have something awesome over the weekend on Sunday.
Yes, and you're finally thawed out from it, right? It was a little cold and wet.
It was a little cold and wet, but I got to tell you, military people are obviously troopers. A little bit of rain isn't going to stop them based on some of the stuff they went through. We have renamed Route 59 from Caton Farm Road to Route 126. It's renamed now the Honorable Private First Class Andrew Mary Memorial Highway. So really great event. Worked with her mom with this legislation over years, actually. It kind of got hung up because of COVID. I always say Senator Bertino. Chief Executive Bertino was there. Senator Capel carried the bill in the Senate. So it was nice. We had some other people there too, but it was a really good event. But I do have one quick bone to pick with you.
All right, let's go.
I lost a lot of sleep over the weekend because of two words. See if this rings a bell. Ted Lasso. What an outstanding show. I don't have a lot of time for TV. Ted Lasso is an Apple TV show, and it was actually nice to have his positivity was just
Isn't it great?
Did
you binge both seasons?
I binged Friday night until about 1:30 in the morning. I binged the first season, and then I said, okay, I gotta pace myself and save some of this because I don't know when season 3 is going to come out. But great show for those people who haven't watched it. It's got some racy innuendos and some swear words, but it's actually nice to have sort of an old-fashioned, goofy, positive energy kind of TV show.
Yeah, and the English drop the F-bombs frequently. They do.
Okay, so unaware.
Yeah, that is very common vernacular over there. Very common. And Jason Sudeikis was on Saturday Night Live this past Saturday night. And in his monologue, he said, I'm surprised Ted Lasso's doing as well as it's doing. And worldwide, it's a smash. But here in America also. And he goes, because it's two things that Americans hate the most, soccer and kindness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny because this is what's scary about the algorithms that big tech have. So I obviously binged a lot of Ted Lasso, and then somehow I have Hulu TV. It came up as an immediate suggestion was to watch Jason Sudeikis. So I watched the intro and I saw that. But yeah, soccer and kindness. So we're going to try to bring you a little bit of kindness today, but we're also going to bring in somebody I'm hoping he can explain some stuff to me, and that's Ted Dabrowski. He does a lot of good work. Wire Points is his website, and you can subscribe to his newsletter. And we have him on the air to talk about inflation. Are you there, Ted?
I'm here. Good morning, guys.
Hey, I got a question for you. So I've been talking about this actually for, close to a year, talking with colleagues and other people about inflation rearing its ugly head and concerns about it. And what's odd is I drive by the gas station and I see that what gas is, depending on the day, is about doubled, right? We see the prices of homes going up. We all go to restaurants and grocery stores and we see see prices going up. I see cars, which obviously you got the microchip shortage. I see prices going. Pretty much everywhere I go, everything I do, prices have seemed to go up. But I get these technocrats that come in and say, well, there's not really big inflation. So let's start out by explaining that one to me. How do the technicals somehow say that there isn't big inflation out there?
Well, what they're saying out there is they're using the word transitory, which is short term, is short lived. They're saying that because of COVID, we had a lot of things slow down a year ago, and so now today things are picking back up. There's a lot more activity, and so therefore, prices are up some. But like you say, some of these price increases are crazy, and it's kind of hard to blame on just the economy's picking up a little. It has to be much more than that, and that's I think what we have to pull back the curtain on, and a lot of it has to do with the trillions and trillions of dollars that are being pumped out of out of the Fed and out of Washington D.C. and flowing through the system. And anybody who studied anything on inflation in the past knows that it can just wreak havoc on people's lives in a big way.
I'd love to get into that. What's the biggest ways that you see it wreaking havoc? So one of my concerns is I actually think it pushes the income gap farther apart. But how do you see it as wreaking havoc?
Well, I mean, like you said, first of all, start with the average ordinary Illinoisan who maybe owns his home, maybe just rents, maybe just getting by on paycheck to paycheck. Well, when you see things like the gas prices jump like they do, or maybe he or she needs a used car to keep doing the kind of work that they do. Maybe it's a sales job. When used car prices jump 25%, that's phenomenal, right? And when you're looking at just buying beef and other meats, they're up about 18%. Housing costs, your rental, all that up 20%. This makes it really, really difficult for somebody whose wages may not be keeping up, or is, depending on which negotiation power they have with their employer, can they get their salary to go up faster than all those price increases I just told you? And that's where they get hurt, and it's really hard for the low-end crowd, low-income crowd, to have those salaries keep up. And so it's really just a massive tax, especially on things that they really need, like food and transportation.
Now, why do you see it as not being transitory? And I'll be interested to see your reaction on this, because I had people say it is or it isn't. I actually think there's an option C. But why do you think this isn't transitory? What's your longer-term concern?
Well, I've been in the financial markets all my life. I traded currencies and bonds and derivatives. I managed trading floors, and so I've always learned to respect the markets a lot. Nobody really knows, kind of thing, right? But you have to kind of look at the signals. And what's phenomenal about what's happening in the U.S. is, I'm going to bring it to Illinois. Illinois has received $180 billion from the federal government in the last year and a half. Now, it's hard to know what that number means, but Illinois, kind of the state budget is $40 billion, and so when you flood a place like Illinois with $180 billion from the federal government, all borrowed or all printed, it's not like that money was made. The federal government just went out and printed it and just hands it over to people. And a lot of that money wasn't necessary as we saw the economy recover more quickly. So all that money, trillions and trillions when you talk about all the states, is flowing around out there, and it wreaks havoc on the system, because now more people are putting more money. They want more things. They push up the prices. And if you're not careful and it lasts a long time, everybody puts that into their expectations. Well, everything's costing more, so I want a bigger raise. And companies start to price it in. Everybody react in a different way, where price increases kind of become the norm. And once you have big inflation or much larger inflation, it's really confusing to the market, and we can talk about that more.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, so let's hit the word transitory, and then I want to talk more about how it's confusing to the market. And at some point, if we have time, maybe somebody can explain to me what a derivative is, because I've never been able to completely understand that. But so I was in a little bit of a discussion with somebody about arguing about transitory, and they were saying that this is a transitory situation. And if anybody's listened to the show very much, they know I pretty much watch CNBC is kind of something that I watch just to grab the news in the market. I do a lot of reading, and apparently now I binge Ted Lasso. But the argument for him saying that this was a transitory situation was simply this. He said, there's a difference between, there's a group that thinks we have this like what lumber really jumped up or cars really jumped up, and then they're coming back down. That's what true transitory is. Permanent is when you have what we had in the 70s, where you had, double-digit inflation or high inflation year after year after year after year. His argument was that neither camp is right, and they're really misunderstanding the word transitory. The wages are going to go up. The price of things are going to go up. But then there's going to fairly quickly be a settling down period. Where in those do you see it? And then, go ahead and pontificate on the longer term, details of the issue.
Well, no, I think you're right to a certain extent. There are some products which will go up in price because, I don't know, let's take the new cars, right? The new cars, they're lacking chips. And so the chips are stopping the ability for those cars to get to market. And so there's very few of them. I had a 14-year-old car. We just bought a new one, and we probably paid up a little bit more for it.
I'm in the same situation. I got a 14-year-old car that I keep putting Band-Aids, gum, and glue on. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, and so my car, that was my wife's car we purchased a new one for. My car's 14 years old as well and starting to rust a little bit here. I went and looked at it, and they have these whatever they call the sales price that they offer on the, what the hell is it called, MSRP, whatever, manufacturing suggested retail price. Well, it used to be that you would get like $5,000 or $2,000 off of that MSRP. Now they're saying you have to pay $3,000 over, $5,000 over, $10,000 over. It's depending on which car, and so forget it. I'm not going to pay it that extra for a car right now. But the question is going to be, do those prices return back to normal once the chips are all being made and all that? But the more pernicious side of the inflation is where people like, okay, let's take some of the unions. They're very strong in Illinois, right? The public sector unions. They say, hey, we've had this inflation of 5%, 7%, depending on what the number is, and they start demanding higher wages. And they've got a lot of power in Illinois. So if those wages are then plugged into the higher salaries, well, then they will spend more. And what you've got is a situation where prices actually never come back down. Some of these products aren't going to come back down in prices. They get sticky. And companies have already started pricing in as if those prices are staying. And then workers demand higher salaries as if those prices are sticking around, and there you go, and that's how you get into the negative cycle. So it's not transitory, it's sticky, and it continues to, it's a new base, and from there it goes.
Okay, so what you're saying is everybody's chasing the next thing. So the employee says prices have gone up, so he asks for more money, he gets more money, which then in turn forces prices to go up. Is that kind of how you see that?
Yeah, then the manufacturer says, well, our cost went up, so we're going to raise our prices of eggs by 3%, 5%. And it just triggers a cycle that's really hard to get out of. And anytime you've seen big inflation problems across the world in the past, that's what happens. It starts into a spiral, and then it's really hard to get out of that spiral. And sometimes that spiral will even get going faster.
Well, how did the spiral stop in the 70s? So I was 10, 11 years old when I guess it ended. I remember living through it. I was reading an article today that talked about how there's, probably half the people in the country weren't around when all that went down. So how do you end it? What's the path forward?
Well, you're right. Inflation hasn't really been around. It's hardly been in existence these last couple decades. We've had 1 or 2% inflation, which is on average, right? Some products have gone up much more. Some people don't buy into the whole inflation formulas and all that. But when I was young, in the early 70s. That's when we had these massive price increases in gas and oil and all that. And it took a guy named Paul Volcker, who became the Fed chief. He took rates to 15 and 20%. I mean, it was crazy rates. If you're talking about right now, the 10-year interest rates for the government are like 1.5%, 1.7%. Back then, there were 15 and 20% or whatever. They were really, really high rates. You can't manage a normal economy with those kind of rates. Everything changes. The ballgame changes when you have that. And what it does is it really, sinks the economy. You have to really shrink the economy to make that inflationary pressure go down. That hurts people a lot.
Okay, so you're saying that it's the shrinking of the economy starts the inflation from going down. Okay, well, follow me through this timeline. And I've talked a lot on this show about how one of the difficult things. We're literally going from this conversation to a conversation about puppy mills, right? So
Yeah.
I've got to. We as legislators really have to take in a lot of information and do the best we can to make good decisions. And this is something that I like to look at myself as a numbers guy, and this is kind of how I've looked at the numbers, and this is my biggest concern with inflation. So let's look at the different ends of the income spectrum. If you're a high income earner, you generally have a lot of assets. Is that pretty safe to say? Correct. Let's say
you got stuff in the bond market, in the stock market. You got some real estate. Mm-hmm.
Right. And let's get to all those. Well, so you got something in you've got real estate. Let's say have a $2 million building and you owe $1 million on it, right? And so you're certainly at the higher end of the spectrum. Well, hypothetically, if you have 100% inflation, you now have a $4 million building with $1 million loan on it, right? So you went from a 50% leverage position to a 75% leverage position. So on the rich end, if you own assets, things like that, you're actually doing fairly, you're protected. You're at least hedged against inflation. Obviously, the stock market can go sideways both ways, but if you have companies that are making money, that are raising more prices, the numbers are just numbers. they go up. Not as familiar what would happen with the bond market, but people who have assets in many ways can have their situation improve. I mean, I read of a situation in Germany post Depression time, pre World War II times, where there was somebody who made a lot of money. He just borrowed and then bought a lot of stuff. And during the hyperinflation times, then he obviously made a lot of money. Now you flip that to the other side. You have somebody who rents, and I'm seeing a lot of articles about, depending where you are in the country, of double-digit rent increases. In fact, my son rents, and he's talking about a big increase where he rents. You rent, you don't have a lot of assets, maybe have a little bit of savings. Well, your savings, if there's this theoretical 100% increase in inflation, your savings gets cut in half. If your rent goes up, and if food goes up, and if gas prices go up, maybe you're lucky if your wages go up to keep up with all that, but you definitely see a dichotomy between the low-income groups and the high-income groups on who is hurt the most. To me, it seems like it's pretty clear that the low-income groups are hurt the most by inflation. Tell me where I'm wrong.
I can't tell you where you're wrong at all. I think your assessment's spot on. And I'd even add one more thing, that when the government finally gets around to trying to kill that inflation by raising interest rates and slowing down the economy and slowing down the fervor of the economy, guess it is who loses jobs, right? It's always
right.
The low-income people. So it's a double whammy. And look, my before I started doing policies work here in Illinois, I spent 6 years in Mexico and 9 years in Poland, and those were working in emerging markets where they get into this kind of trouble all the time. I was in Mexico at the time when there was a huge devaluation of the currency. People lost faith in Mexico. Inflation hit huge levels, and people lose their jobs. Their money's worth less, and you see this crazy environment where people stop thinking about how to make money the normal way. Like you said, they start buying assets, anything that can preserve value. You start buying a washing machine, you buy a car, you buy exercise machine, you buy anything that hopefully will continue to inflate, because holding money means you're just going to lose whatever you're holding in your hands in terms of cash. It's just going to lose value.
Wow. Okay. So why are we hearing that the technicals aren't that big on inflation? Well, and what are they saying the current official inflation rate is? I mean, I always laugh when they want to say inflation X food and energy, because I think I spend that's one of the important things is food and energy. But what is the current inflation rate? Well,
yeah. So I think people have to know that food and energy are very volatile, and so the official numbers, they'll report two official numbers out of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. They'll always publish one, which is all the basket of goods that they track on a month-to-month basis. And that'll have one inflation number, and that include gasoline and energy and food, both of which are very volatile. And they'll do one excluding that, so you can kind of say, hey, when you exclude these volatile items, we track that. So they track one with and without. But right now, the including food and energy is 5.4%. Which sounds really low when you start thinking about gasoline up 50%. And
okay, so they are saying 5.4% then.
Correct. But then when you exclude food and energy, it's closer to 4%.
Okay.
And now you should know that both of those numbers are really high relative to the last 20 years.
Oh, I think we've been 1-2%, right, for the most part.
Yeah, 1-2%. Every once in a while we get surprised with a 2.5, 3, but for the most part, it's been 1 to 2%.
Well, I can say it doesn't feel like only a 5.4%.
No, it doesn't.
That's why people don't buy it, right? It depends on what your quote basket of goods that you're buying are. But if you're a traveling salesperson, holy cow, man, you're paying the price, right? And if and again that comes bring it back to used cars and all that. But if if you want to eat your normal beef and stuff like that, and that's nearly 20%, well, what the heck, right? What is this 5.4%? A lot of people don't buy it.
Ted, wait until they get their first bills. Many people probably this weekend turned on their furnaces for the first time. Most of us are on gas furnaces. Wait till you get your first couple of bills from Nicor.
No, there you go, and that's a big deal too, and I think that's gonna be really pricey for people.
Well, we could also talk about electric rates.
Yeah, we can do that too.
And energy rates. We have a $700 million increase in energy rates. Okay. You know what? We are going to have, I just got a text. We've got we're going to have to transition to some veto session stuff. Ted, it's always a pleasure listening to you. I want to say publicly on the radio, I really appreciate all you do to kind of help educate everybody out there on some complicated things. And maybe sometime when I have a drink in my hand, you can really explain to me exactly what derivatives are.
All right. Well, it was great talking to you guys.
Hey,
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks,
Be good.
Ted.
That's Ted Dabrowski from wirepoints.org. This is Policy Nuance with Mark Batinick, State Representative in the 97th District right here on 1340 WJOL. Ted's a really smart guy, and we did an interview with him yesterday, and it's in the podcast section of our website at WJOL.com, and he goes through we're at 5.4%, gas, 42% increase, energy, almost 25, used cars and trucks, 24.5, utility gas service, 20.6, new vehicles, 8.7, electricity, 5.2, food, 4.6, transportation, 4.4, apparel, 3.4, shelter, 3.2.
Boy, that doesn't feel like 5.4.
It does not feel like 5.4.
I don't know. I want to know that mathematic formula. Maybe that's the same mathematician that figured out
Mark,
how to make our pension.
Yeah,
payments.
exactly. I posted something just the other day, and I didn't mean to stir up the hornet's nest, but I just posted a picture of 357.9 that I filled up with on Friday, and I said, seriously, I've about had it with this. Boom. And all of a sudden, it goes split right down party lines. It's Biden's fault. It's not Biden's fault. And literally people that are friends of mine on Facebook, and I have a lot from the radio station, I have no idea who these people are, and they're going at it tooth and nail. It was intense. It was quite laughable, too, by the way.
Well, and this goes to part of the reason why I want to do this show is it's so frustrating that everybody automatically falls into into their camps.
Yeah.
There's plenty we can blame everybody. I lean more on. I'd like to see the Keystone Pipeline, bill.
Yes.
There are certainly some economic policies of the new administration I don't like, but what's disappointing is that everybody automatically fell into their camp. But we are going to go into we're going to talk about some important veto session stuff.
Okay.
And this case could almost be a textbook case. Anna, are you on the phone? Are you?
Yes.
Can you hear us, Anna?
I am.
Awesome.
Yes. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Anna Saskic. Pronounce your last name. I'm sorry. I always refer to you as Anna.
It's okay. It's a tough one. Shoshkic.
Polish, right?
Serbian.
Well, boy, I'm like 0 for
All
3
right,
here so
so
far.
without the dialect, it's Saskic. Okay, you're good. Yeah.
All right. So you are the owner. You are the owner of Furry Babies, and I remember you came into my. When did you come into my district office the first time, Anna?
I want to say that it was over the summer, probably around June.
Over the summer, okay. And if there's one sacred cow down in Springfield, I would say that sacred cow is puppies. There is anything with animals, specifically puppies. People get almost as worked up as much as they did on gas prices on your Facebook page, Scott. So we had a colleague of mine actually passed an what was called an anti-puppy mill bill, and a lot of times what's in the bill doesn't always match the name of the bill or what the effects of the bill is. So, Anna, I'm going to give the floor to you, and let's go through the whole thing. Let's talk about the old bill and the new bill and where we are with everything.
Great, yeah. So, House Bill 1711 has passed and signed by the governor. So the House Bill 1711 fails to include any animal welfare language or regulation. And the only way to really ensure that we truly shut down puppy mills in Illinois is by implementing strict ethical breeding standards. We know that when you implement legislation that increases standards of care with appropriate oversight, we force puppy mills out of business. But as currently written, House Bill 1711 does none of this. So we really have an opportunity here to make Illinois the second state to pass comprehensive language and shut down puppy mills and really be a pioneer for animal welfare in the United States.
So what did 1711 do then? And I'll take you back. I think you must have called me before you came into my office over the summer, because this was passed in May, finally, I think, in the Senate. And I believe it went to the House first, which would have been in April. So we certainly spoke before then. And
Yes, we did.
I don't know anybody who I haven't seen the big pro puppy mill crowd, right? So it was obviously an easy yes and hard to vote against. But you actually were the one that convinced me that this bill wasn't as advertised and didn't do what it was expected to do. So what exactly did the bill do? The original version that passed where it failed.
Yeah, so the original bill requires pet stores to source from rescues and shelters only, thus closing all the remaining pet stores in Illinois. And pet stores in Illinois are currently the most regulated and transparent source for Illinois consumers to purchase their dog from. So one of the arguments is that we can convert to a humane model, and although we do have some basic merchandise in our store, and when they say humane, it means sourcing the dog from a rescue.
Is that really some dogs barking in the background? That's fantastic.
I'm sorry,
I just want everybody to know we're not doing that with a computer. This is actually legit.
No, I'm so sorry. That's actually my dog. He's voicing his opinion that he's against House Bill 1711. He gets a little riled up when we talk about it.
Bark, dog, bark.
Yeah, he's got great timing. Yeah, so any pet store that is converted to this model where they are sourcing dogs from shelters and rescue in Illinois has closed. Even Dog Patch in Naperville just closed in August because they were not bringing in enough revenue and often GoFundMe campaigns to raise money for veterinary costs. So that model is just not sustainable. But also, there's just not enough dogs. There's over 1 million dogs that are imported into the United States each year without oversight. So we're looking at actually putting our dogs in danger with this bill because there's no animal welfare language and increasing the black market.
So pet stores were limited now to getting dogs from rescues and shelters, and you said that it's something about that there's not enough dogs, and we're importing dogs from other places. What was confusing to me, and I never really gave much thought about, is I think about my childhood cartoon where there was always a dog catcher running around capturing dogs and then bringing them to the rescue and shelter. Obviously, that isn't happening now. Where do rescues and shelters get their dogs?
Well, I do believe that they have a really important part in dogs, right? But just like anything else, there are rescues and shelters that do import dogs or even go and purchase their dogs at auctions from bad breeders that we are fighting against and to ensure that they go out of business. So they'll take just donations for their cause and turn around and purchase from this bad breeder saying the dog was saved from a puppy mill, but in fact they're just perpetuating this cycle and they're making the puppy mill thrive. So this legislation will also close that loophole where they will not be able to do that, along with implementing breeder standards. And I guess I should clarify, when I say this legislation, I mean the trailer bill that we've been working on.
Okay. And what's the status of that trailer bill at this point? I mean, I'm going to be going into session here literally in minutes. What's the status of? I know we're trying to do what's called a shell bill, but what's the status of it? Do you guys have a bill number, a vehicle bill to get this passed during this veto session?
Yeah, so we're still currently working on that. We are looking to move the trailer bill during this veto session to implement that full intent of House Bill 1711 to protect the dogs, consumers, and small businesses. But we're still working on those final procedural steps as we go into veto here.
Okay. And how's your business been? I mean, let's transition out of the technical stuff into doggy pandemic stuff. It seems like everybody, my daughter got engaged, married, got a dog. My son got engaged, got a dog, and it seems like everybody I know is getting a dog. We already have a dog. What's happening out there with? I see the commercial with the pet lizard because they ran out of dogs at the dog store. What's going on with
good commercial, by the way?
Yeah, it is a good
really
commercial. Good commercial. What's going on with how did the pandemic affect the entire pet industry?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the pandemic's been twofold, really. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we just didn't have enough dogs. We work with professional licensed and inspected breeders, and we would have a very small amount of puppies, and they would all go home in the same week. because so many puppies were going home during the pandemic. It was an advantage for people who work long hours in the office to be able to stay at home and train that puppy. When they're back in the office, the puppy's potty trained and is already a lot older, so they were able to get through that, as I call it, the baby stage of the dog's life.
Yep, that's what my daughter and son-in-law are currently doing. They're at the stage where it's hard to, they can't go to an official dog sitter because of the dog's so new.
Yeah, absolutely. So during the early stages of the pandemic, that's kind of what we were seeing. Everything's still going really well. We're really lucky to work with some wonderful breeders and just have wonderful clients. We include a vet care package if the customer chooses to do so. That includes the spay or the neuter of the dog, and also we help them with training to ensure that they understand it's a lifelong decision. So all the dogs that have been going home during this, phase of the pandemic have stayed with their families.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add? Give a little plug for your store, how to get a hold of you, where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I own Furry Babies. We have several locations: Lombard, Aurora, Rockford, and we'd love for you to stop by and visit and check out, our puppies for yourself and where they come from. We have all the information for you, and we look forward to getting some great animal welfare legislation through to protect our business.
I do too. I look forward to supporting it. I appreciate you for being an advocate for good actors in the industry. And Anna, thank you so much for being on, and good luck these next couple of days. Hopefully we can get something done.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. I really, truly appreciate your support and this platform.
You got it. All right, Anna, thank you. Furry Babies, visit. You need a puppy? Go there. But this is kind of what I want to get into a little bit in terms of the technical sense. This is so much of what we do. I talked about how last week was we did nothing. Don't confuse activity with accomplishment. Part of the thought process was that it's important that we act like we're doing things. I think it's important. I think it's important to actually be doing things when you need to do, and sometimes do no harm. This bill, and it was actually a Republican colleague of mine. He had good intentions. He had a situation with a dog that came from a breeder that he worked with, and he had a bad experience, we'll just say, and that's what kind of brought this bill out. The issue was the bill has to do what you wanted to do, and I don't feel like it did. And like I said, there's certain things you just don't vote against puppies.
Oh no!
So even though the bill didn't have the best language possible, it had a very strong majority. I actually did not support the bill, which once again it's one of those things that you have to, I don't know, get radio time and talk about it long enough for everybody to understand why you voted no on a bill, even if it is something like this. But it's a very serious issue. So. I hope we're able to get that done and get that fixed this veto session, because people like Anna, it's great. Once again, had Ted in to talk about inflation. I don't know everything about how the puppy business works, right? You have to rely on doing a whole bunch of research, and you have to count on advocates and people like Anna to fill you in on things. So
yeah, I know it pretty well. We've been a boxer family, and we just stumbled onto it. So we bought our first boxer from a woman in Crest Hill, and she bred boxers, champion boxers. I wanted a pet. Well, she made me the first 2 years of my pet's life. She made a deal. I'll sell it to you, but you have to let me show him, because it was part part of her job.
Sure, right.
That was part of her livelihood. So she showed him, and he won, and then I eventually studied him out. He won a bunch of shows. Then I finally got fed up with the whole best in show situation, because these people are a little out there. And then I bought just the time that he passed away, just so happened she had puppies, his grandfather. So I actually I got his grandson.
Okay.
And couldn't show him because he only had one testicle. So that was cool. So I was like, I'm big into boxers and how they look and stuff, because I've always had like champion style boxers. So we needed another dog, and my daughter's like, we need another boxer. So I have friends at all these animal shelters, right? And at Joliet Township, finally they called up, and because most times you go in and these boxers, especially because they're high priced dogs, these females are just bred to death almost. They're in bad shape. They don't look right. They have, their nipples are hanging way down. You can just tell that they've had 20 litters of puppies. Well, this one was a rarity, the one we have now. Mark, she was not bred one time. She was neutered right off the bat.
Wow.
She was owned by a couple of older ladies who had to go to a nursing home, so that's how we were able to get her. But we found a diamond in the rough because usually dogs that are expensive breeds like that are bred literally almost to death. And it's so sad going in there and seeing them because a lot of people just don't want them.
Right. Yeah, no, that's sad and disappointing. I'm real familiar with boxers, actually. Wonderful neighbors of ours have always had boxers, and they're just some of the best behaved dogs, and they're cool looking, like you said.
Yeah.
But they're boy, I gotta say, do a cross for Gracie was our dog was a puppy when our neighbor's dog was in her last couple of years.
Sure.
And female as well, and these the great looking dogs. But this dog just took care of our.
That's awesome.
Our dog used to sneak out to go play with Gracie all the time. And Gracie was a little bit calmer, and our dog was always, if you've had a dog, you know what a puppy's like.
Oh yeah.
And our dog was crazy, and she would just play with Gracie all the time. Gracie would deal with her happily, but yeah. So hopefully we get that passed. I mean, I think this is something that obviously would be bipartisan. It's just a matter of getting it through
the language right,
getting the language right
Yep.
through the process. But we've got a bunch of other things going on during veto session. I don't know if you saw the second version of the Congress. Now I'm losing track how many versions of maps we have. Second version of congressional maps, but also the state legislative maps kind of got half thrown out
Yes.
at the court last week. So the first version that was passed in May. So I'm saying state and congressional. So here's the difference. So there's the state maps, which are state reps and state senators. The people go down to Springfield. There's 118 state rep seats, 49 state Senate seats. Those maps were remapped in May. Census numbers came out, and then they had to adjust them because some districts were up to 20-30% off. And then from a population standpoint. So we came down over the summer. We did a second version, went to court. MALDEF, who's a Mexican-American Legal Defense Fund, sued because there wasn't enough Hispanic districts, and the Republicans sued for not being compact and contiguous. You can see the stuff on my Facebook page or my website. The courts throughout the first maps didn't totally rule on the second map, so it was kind of a half win. It's not going to go to a commission or anything like that, but it's still up in the court. So all the maps, I don't know what my district is going to look like for sure. Other people don't know what anybody really doesn't know for sure what their districts are going to look like. But in veto session last week, they presented the congressional maps, which are your Adam Kinzinger.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think the other.
Lauren
Underwood, Bill
yeah.
Foster are the kind of the three in the area.
Do you know he's a scientist?
You have no idea how much that joke cuts. And a businessman, by the way.
And a businessman. Sorry, but
yeah.
folks, if you don't know, that's what he will. I'm the only scientist in Washington, D.C. Sorry.
Yeah, no. That's good. So, his district actually. So that they redistricted that, and once again, this will be in my website. They made a district. So this is how political these maps are. There's a gentleman that has kind of talked about running for governor, Davis, and Rodney Davis from downstate, and he's always been kind of in one of those 50-50 districts, tough races. Well, they put him in a district that looks almost like it's just short of a complete circle. Literally from Indiana to Missouri and Iowa, almost, and it loops around down by St. Louis. It's a few miles short of a complete circle. It's a goofy looking map, but the scientists district actually got thinned out a little bit. The way they want to we went from 18 seats to 17 seats. So for Pelosi to keep power at the federal level, they need to win as much in states like Illinois because they feel like they're going to lose in states like Texas because of gerrymandering on both sides, which we've talked about in the past. And so out of these 17 seats, they basically made a 14-3 sort of layout. where they think there's 14 Dem districts and 3 Republican districts. And they put the gentleman that they thought was going to run for governor in a very strong Republican district. Adam Kinzinger is currently mapped in with Darren LaHood, the way the map is drawn. And then
out of Peoria?
Yep. And
Okay.
then Mary Miller downstate is the Southern District. Mary Miller and Mike Bost are mapped together. The interesting one, and this could change again, the interesting one, too, is they put Maureen Newman and Sean Casten in the same district. So they did put two Democrats in the same district, but they opened up a Latino district. I think it's the 3rd district with this second iteration of the map. We'll see if there's a third iteration. But, if you try to get too cute with this stuff, man, we talk on the air all the times about the polarization. You have these hard.
Oh, yeah.
If you only have 3 Republican districts in the state, they're just going to be hard R, way to the right Republican districts. But the way you do it is you try to slice up the Democratic districts so that they only lean a little bit Republican. So it'll be interesting to see what the final map looks like. But it's clearly a gerrymandered mess. But so we're going to be dealing with that this week. The other thing we're going to be dealing with that's been getting a lot of news, and I want to talk about something that I did, and we actually had this article is on my Facebook page. We had we had Sue Resden and Larry Walsh Jr. were both in the Tribune and Monday's article on parental notification, which I think we talked a lot about. And I'm going to give them both quite a bit of credit on this one. The Trib's article was "Push to Repeal Parental Notification for Minors Seeking Abortion Tests Liberal Limits of Illinois' Democratic-Controlled Legislator." And I thoroughly believe this. And we talked about this. The polling is, even the pro-choicers are 50-50 at best on whether or not, their 14 or 15-year-old should be able to have an abortion without the parents knowing.
Yeah.
And so it really doesn't poll well. So I decided to do something. I like trying different things. I texted the whole district, every text phone number I could get, and I sent out a text, and I sent them a podcast of last week's show, and I said, tell me what you think on this issue. And we probably got 300 emails back.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
300
great.
emails. And I'd say it was somewhere between 90 to 95% of the people believe that
in parental
notification. And when we talk about gerrymandered maps, this is what's frustrating, because you have an issue. My district is clearly not a extreme, I'm the only Republican to have won my district the last 2 cycles, right?
Oh.
When you look at the precincts that make it up. So basically, I'm in what would be considered a soft Dem-leaning district. And when you have a district like mine that overwhelmingly opposes getting rid of parental notification, it tells you where the state probably is. And the frustrating part about that is that because of things like gerrymandering and everything else, you get everything pushed to the extreme instead of some more common sense legislation. So it's a great article. I do want to talk about a couple of quotes that were in here, specifically Sue and Larry.
Why'd they interview Sue and Larry on this?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. Several Democrat lawmakers either declined to discuss the issue during the first half of the legislature's 2-week fall session, didn't return calls seeking comment, or said they were undecided on how they'd vote if the matter is taken up. Look, it's an issue they know is a loser, but they're afraid of a primary. And that's when you have these hard R or hard D districts.
That's right.
You get into the situation where it's not about doing what you think your overall district was. It's protecting yourself from losing an election, which is not how people should be running for office. One undecided legislator was Rep. Lawrence Walsh Jr., an Elwood Democrat who voted against the 2019 Reproductive Health Act, which codified into state law a fundamental right to an abortion. He questioned whether a vote to repeal parental notification was ready for consideration. And this is interesting. He says he was weighing arguments pro and con, the father of 3, including an adult daughter. But this is exactly what I got. He said, "My district has reached out to me over the last 3 weeks. I have not heard from one proponent of the bill, I have not heard from one proponent of the bill, understanding the bill is going to repeal parental notice. I've had numerous opponents." So people want the bill would remove parental notification. So we have to get that straight. So his district, which is clearly more Democratic than my district is kind of the same way. People are strongly in leaving in place the parental notification. This is what Melinda Bush was she says they have the votes in the Senate, and she said, we want to make it clear that we're committed to protecting a woman's right to reproductive health, and that includes young women who have been raped or sexually abused by a family member. I agree. Well, if somebody isn't notified who is an adult or go to court or something, like, how are you protecting that person? If a young child is being abused or raped, there has to be a process, or God forbid, it's somebody some figure, whether it be a coach or something like that, like we talked about last week. So to me, it really doesn't jive that you're protecting young women in this situation. I think the parents or somebody needs to be involved.
Who sponsored this bill and why?
This is there's a group of people that believe all access at any point of pregnancy, all time, no matter what the circumstances, is no age. I believe the original version was Rep. Mueller in the House. Obviously, Melinda Bush is a proponent. I don't know if she's gonna. A lot of times when they do these bills, they do these with shell bills, where they take a bill that somebody else had and quickly change it. It gets rid of the process a little bit. So
wow.
It's the people that believe in that stuff, believe in it 100% all the time, no exceptions. And this is, since 2013, judges granted more than 99.5% of bypass requests. So if you were in a situation where you couldn't go to your parents for whatever reason, you'd have the ability to go to a court to get that right if you were, 15, 16, 17 years old. One of the other arguments is, and I guess this kind of goes to the why it's being pushed, because this bill was passed a while before, or was submitted a while before Texas did what they did. One of the other reasons is they said, well, Texas and Mississippi are restricting abortions, so we need to do something else to counterbalance that.
Ah, okay.
And what I don't understand about that logic is that's like saying, well, every time Texas lowers taxes, we should raise
our taxes,
right? So we need to do what's right for Illinois and what makes sense for Illinois, regardless of what other states are doing. If whether the issue be taxes or roads or any of this stuff, it's not our job in Illinois to be a counterbalance to other states. It's our job as legislators in the state of Illinois to do what's right for the citizens of Illinois, not to be a counterbalance to somebody who lives in Indiana, Mississippi, Texas, Montana, New York, whatever it is. So that's really going to be the hot one. I mean, here's another paragraph from the article. In heavily Democratic Chicago, a group of pastors from Latino, African American, and other ethnic congregations are calling on lawmakers to keep parental notification in place, arguing that it is the rightful role of parents to be involved in major decisions in their children's lives. The group joins Chicago Cardinal Blasi Kupich. Did I say that
Close
right?
enough. Yeah, that's good.
and the bishops of the state's 5 other Roman Catholic dioceses in opposing the repeal of parental notification. So these are the ones that it's interesting, because a lot of the times you hear consultants get in the way of policy a lot, right? Because consultants, their job is to worry about the campaign side, so they're always worried about
and the polls,
and the
which
polls.
I'm tired of hearing about from Washington, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, the polls say this. Well, the polls say that.
Right, and it's interesting because the polls will say, the poll said that we should have no more wars in Afghanistan until all of a sudden they saw what that meant, and then it flipped. Right, there needs to be a deeper understanding. Our job is to, whether it be to talk to Ted Dabrowski or talk to Anna from Furry Babies or talk to whatever it is, and really get into deeper issues. People need to be living their lives, but the consultants are really concerned about Republicans talking about issues like this. But this is one where I've taken the tack. Well, look, I did a radio show on it. I texted my district. I think this is a loser. I'll put it to you this way: the bipartisan vote will be against this bill, just like it was for the last one that was similar. That the bipartisan group of people, which often tells you, when things go along party lines, you can make a decision whether you think something's right or not. You will see if this bill hits the board, it will be purely Democrats that will vote for this. There will be many Democrats that do not support it, and every Republican will go against it. So, yeah, that's those of us that are lay people, if you will, and I can speak for most of them, we
we have so much more respect for elected officials when they vote to do the right thing. Now, I mean, I don't want to sit here and get in a debate on, abortion or anything like that, but clearly the right thing in this case is for the parents to have to be notified that their daughter's going in for an abortion. Clearly.
Right.
I mean, 99% of the rational thinking Americans would agree with that.
Yeah, and it's in most states, obviously. It's a supermajority of states that have laws requiring this. But we're in.
And when it comes to a lot of other stuff, too, it's just everything's party line. I'd like to spend part of your show one time. Maybe we can plan this in the future. I know you come up with the topics and everything, but, man, I just want to talk to somebody who can explain to me why you literally, and I understand why the media is doing what they're doing, but why not everyone can agree. Like all the Republicans didn't actually appreciate Trump doing some of the things he did. And there's no way all the Democrats can understand what the hell Biden is doing. And the other night, a couple of after his town hall on CNN, they're like, "Oh man, he's sharp on his game tonight." There's no rational person that watched that show that thought he was on his game. I just want the truth, Representative Batinick.
When Saturday Night Live is spoofing you.
Did they? I missed it.
Yeah, no. So as Jason Sudeikis did the intro, but then if you watch more of the episode, he played 2013 Joe Biden, as opposed to the guy that was playing current Joe Biden. So they had him side by side, and
I gotta watch it.
2013 Joe Biden was all fake, finger guns, pow pow pow, and I'll buy ice cream, I'll sniff your hair. He was all, oh gosh, Jason Sudeikis is a great actor. I'm addicted to his stuff now. So,
sorry.
So yeah, the Saturday Night Live episode, I think Peacock has it. You can watch all those for free now.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. So, I don't know. We finished last week to transition into finishing out the show here. I think we got 2-3 minutes left. We finished last week. Dan Ugasti people have been on me about this, and they're like, "You're not doing enough." I had a press conference with Dan Ugasti and a couple others about the governor's mandates. Obviously, we're doing well with COVID. Can we please? I think the latest statement made it sound like from the governor. The latest statement made it sound like, if you're good, maybe by Christmas and the holidays, we'll let you not do the mask in stores and stuff. The issue is I think at this point, from going to the stores that I go to, boy, especially even in Springfield, but even down here lately, the last couple of weeks, people are just done. They're just completely done with it. And so I'm getting pressure. You're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. Filed the bill, held a press conference, wrote a letter. We are in the minority. No. I talk to people about this. Elections have consequences, and the consequence of one having a Democratic governor and a supermajority of Democrats in the House is the Democrats in the House are happy to let the governor take the arrows on all of this. They're happy to let him do what he's doing. We have the ability to. As a legislator, we can call down, we can pass laws and say, hey, okay, you're going to do this in schools, we're going to debate it, we're going to bring people in, that's what we want. You're going to pass things for business. I have a bill I filed, the Equal Business Treatment Act. You can't sell shoes at Target and close the shoe store locally, right?
Right.
That bill hasn't been called. So it's for all of you out there that are frustrated that Republicans are doing more, I'm not the grab the musket and pitchfork kind of guy, right? There's a process, whether it be bills or negotiations and all of it, and we got to go through that until the next election.
All right, Mr. Batinick, thank you, my friend. If people are just coming into the end, they want to listen to this whole show, it's on your Facebook page?
Facebook page and website, repbatinick.com.
Great, there you go. That's Policy Nuance with State Representative Mark Batinick from the 97th District.